The Sierra Nevada was not just a mountain range. To the builders of the 19th century, it was a wall of granite, snow, ravines, cliffs, and silence, standing between America's eastern railroads and the Pacific coast. On a map, the dream looked almost simple. Draw a line across the continent and bind the nation together with steel. But maps do not show the weight of stone. They do not show how thin the air becomes at altitude, how fast a storm can erase a trail, or how a single cliff can turn a straight line into an impossible question. Before the railroad could cross the Sierra Nevada, the mountain had to be studied, climbed, measured, supplied, cut, blasted, protected, and, in some places, carved open by hand. This was not only a story of engineering. It was a story of logistics against geography. Every rail had to arrive before it could be laid. Every spike, drill, rope, timber beam, barrel of powder, and bag of food had to be carried into places where roads were rough, fragile, or barely existed at all. The Central Pacific Railroad began its push from California, moving east toward a landscape that seemed designed to stop it. At first, the work appeared familiar: survey the route, prepare the grade, move the materials, place the rails. But as the line climbed toward the Sierra, everything changed. The railroad was no longer moving across open ground. It was approaching a fortress of stone. Supply camps became the lifeblood of the project. Iron rails were stacked beside wooden crates, barrels, wagons, animals, tools, and tents. Behind every visible mile of track was an invisible chain of movement. Ships bringing materials to the coast, wagons dragging them inland, animals pulling them higher, and workers carrying them the final distance when no wagon could go farther. The railroad looked like a line of steel. But before it became steel, it was a line of ships, roads, mud, rope, muscle, and time. The mountain did not care about the ambition behind the project. It only presented the same question again and again. How do you move a railroad into a place that resists movement itself? For the Central Pacific, the answer depended on thousands of workers, many of them Chinese immigrants, whose labor would shape some of the hardest miles of the Transcontinental route. They entered a landscape where machines could not easily follow. They carried tools along ledges, hauled materials near ravines, worked in snow, dust, smoke, darkness, and bitter cold. Their work was often dangerous, poorly recognized, and carried out under severe conditions. Yet the hardest parts of the Sierra crossing cannot be understood without them. They were not just helping build the railroad. They were helping force a passage through one of the most difficult barriers on the continent. The first enemy was granite. Not loose soil, not soft earth. Granite. Massive, ancient, resistant, and unforgiving. Before explosives could be used, workers had to drill holes into the rock by hand. The rhythm was brutal and repetitive. Hammer, turn, hammer, turn. One man held the drill against the stone while another swung the sledgehammer. After each strike, the drill was rotated slightly. Again and again, the iron bit into the granite. Dust gathered. Hands blistered. The tunnel face changed almost imperceptibly. Progress was not measured in miles. Sometimes it was measured in inches. And yet every inch mattered, because every inch meant the mountain had given up a little more of itself. Black powder could fracture the stone, but it could not replace the work that came before it. The holes had to be drilled. The charges had to be placed. The workers had to withdraw. Then came the blast, the smoke, the broken rock, the clearing, the bracing, and the same process again. Later, nitroglycerin promised greater speed, but it also brought a new kind of terror. It was powerful, unstable, and dangerous to handle. In the Sierra Nevada, the builders were not simply using technology. They were testing the limits of what 19th century engineering could control. The most famous struggle came near Donner Pass, at what became known as the Summit Tunnel. This was the heart of the mountain problem. A tunnel more than 1,600 feet long, driven through solid granite near the crest of the Sierra Nevada. It was not a simple opening through a hill. It was a prolonged assault on stone. The crews could not simply wait for one tunnel face to move slowly forward. That would take too long. So they attacked the mountain from multiple directions. They worked from the western portal. They worked from the eastern portal. They also used a vertical shaft, sinking into the mountain so that crews could dig outward from inside the rock itself. This meant the tunnel was being created from separate points, in darkness, with the expectation that these distant lines would eventually meet. A small error in alignment could waste months. A slight mistake could turn effort into failure. Here, force was not enough. The tunnel demanded precision. Surveyors worked with instruments, chains, plumb lines, lamps, and calculation. Every measurement mattered. Every angle mattered. The mountain gave no forgiveness for guesswork. Inside the tunnel, lanterns receded into the dark. The walls were rough, damp, newly wounded. The sound of hammers echoed through the granite like a second heartbeat. Outside, snow gathered on the slopes. Inside, stone dust filled the air. The workers were deep inside the question that defined the entire project. Could a railroad be made to pass where nature had placed a wall? Beyond the tunnels, the Sierra demanded a different kind of courage. The track could not simply lie across flat earth. It had to cling to cliffs. It had to curve along slopes, cross ravines, and survive grades where one mistake could send tools, materials, or men into the depths below. Rail beds were cut into granite walls. Timber platforms were built along exposed edges. Stone retaining walls rose beneath the grade, holding the railroad against the mountain. These walls were not decorative. They were silent partners in the climb. Without them, the line could not hold its shape. Without them, the track would have belonged to gravity. The builders were not only laying rails. They were creating a narrow artificial shelf where the mountain had never offered one. And then came winter. The Sierra Nevada did not merely receive snow. It was transformed by it. Snowdrifts rose like walls. Storms buried camps, tools, rails, and progress itself. A section of work that looked complete could disappear overnight beneath white weight and silence. Men could clear a path one day and find it gone the next. Snow turned time into an enemy. It made distance longer. It made supply harder. It made every delay more dangerous. Avalanches were not rare interruptions. They were part of the landscape. The railroad had to be built with the understanding that the mountain would keep attacking it after the tracks were laid. The solution was timber. Massive wooden snow sheds began to appear along vulnerable stretches of the line. They turned sections of the railroad into dark wooden corridors, built to shield trains from drifting snow and sliding slopes. In summer, they may have looked severe. In winter, they were survival. The snow shed was not a beautiful invention. It was a practical one. Heavy beams, long covered passages, wooden ribs protecting steel. It transformed the railroad from an exposed line into something closer to a fortress. Granite required drilling. Cliffs required retaining walls. Snow required sheds. Distance required supply. No single invention conquered the Sierra Nevada. The railroad survived because many systems worked together. Engineering, labor, logistics, surveying, explosives, stonework, timberwork, transport, maintenance. The mountain was not defeated by one heroic moment. It was overcome by repetition, by thousands of small acts, repeated under pressure. A drill hole, a wagon load, a measured line, a beam set in place, a stone block positioned, a rail spiked down, a tunnel cleared, a camp supplied, a path reopened through snow. Again, and again, and again. The human cost of this work was hidden inside every foot of progress. Chinese railroad workers endured some of the most demanding labor on the Central Pacific Line. They worked in places of extreme cold, great altitude, dangerous terrain, and constant physical strain. Many faced discrimination and limited recognition, even as their skill, discipline, and endurance became essential to the railroad's success. Their camps were often close to the work because the work consumed the landscape. A tent, a fire, a few tools, a meal, a short rest, and then back to the stone. To see the Sierra crossing only as a triumph of engineering is to miss the human reality beneath it. Every tunnel held labor. Every wall held labor. Every mile held labor. And much of that labor belonged to people whose names were not preserved with the same care as the names of financiers, politicians, and companies. Yet the mountain remembers differently. Stone does not care who receives credit. It only keeps the marks. Drill scars, tunnel faces, cuts in granite, grades along cliffs, timber sheds against snow. These are records written without ink. As the work continued, the railroad slowly changed from an ambition into a physical fact. The route through the Sierra became a chain of solutions. Tunnel portals appeared where there had once been only rock. Rail grades curved along impossible slopes. Snow sheds stretched across exposed sections. Retaining walls held the line against gravity. Supply depots fed the work. Camps moved with the frontier of construction. And through it all, the summit tunnel stood as the symbol of the entire struggle. To stand before that kind of tunnel is to understand something important. The mountain was not simply crossed. It was entered. It was cut. It was measured from within. It was forced to contain a railroad. When the headings finally met, it was more than a construction milestone. It was proof that the route could survive the mountain. Proof that the granite wall could be pierced. Proof that the Pacific Line was no longer just a dream on paper. But finishing the hardest construction did not mean the Sierra had surrendered. The railroad still had to be protected. Snow sheds needed repair. Tracks needed maintenance. Walls needed inspection. Tunnels needed clearing. The mountain did not stop being dangerous once the first train passed through. It remained a living challenge of weather, rock, timber, ice, and gravity. The completed line made the impossible look inevitable. That is often what great infrastructure does. Once it exists, people forget how unlikely it once seemed. A train emerging from a tunnel. A rail line curving along a cliff. A wooden shed holding back winter. A track crossing where no track should be. To later eyes, it may look natural, almost obvious. But nothing about the Sierra crossing was obvious. It was not a simple victory of progress. It was a negotiated passage through resistance. The mountain kept its height. The snow kept its force. The granite kept its weight. The railroad did not erase the Sierra Nevada. It found a way through it. And that difference matters. Because the Transcontinental Railroad was often celebrated as a symbol of national destiny, a line meant to unite coasts, markets, people, and power. But in the Sierra Nevada, that destiny had a physical price. It was paid in labor, in danger, in exhaustion, in precision, in sacrifice, in workers standing before stone that seemed eternal and returning to it day after day until the stone began to yield. The story of the Sierra crossing is not only about trains. It is about the hidden drama of making the impossible functional. It is about how infrastructure can become as monumental as any palace, temple, or fortress. Not because it was built to be admired from a distance, but because it forced civilization through a place that resisted it. The Sierra Nevada did not welcome the railroad. It did not open a gate. It did not offer an easy pass. The builders had to create one drill hole at a time, one timber beam at a time, one stone wall at a time, one rail at a time. And when the line finally carried trains through granite, snow, and shadow, it left behind more than a route. It left an argument written into the mountain itself. That human ambition could cross enormous distance. That engineering could survive brutal geography. That labor, even when overlooked, could reshape the fate of a continent. Today, the Sierra crossing still feels larger than the railroad that entered it. The peaks remain. The granite remains. The snow still comes. But somewhere in that immense landscape, a line of steel once proved that a mountain could be made to carry the weight of a nation's dream. And the final question is not only how they crossed it. It is what it cost to make the mountain let them through.